This week on New to You, more Scarier Pt2, Psycho, Elvis Costello. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of the New to You show. We are back to review and recommend some more Scarier picks for you.
Scary, spooky stuff.
What I'd recommend is put some dry ice in your water cooler.
Yeah.
And just fog out your
Just
fellow
fog
employees.
out,
Just
man.
fog
Yeah, since
that
we're
shit
talking
out.
about water coolers,
Yeah,
just put some right in the water cooler.
that's right. You can also
So have
some
you tried
green-
that? What happens when you push the spigot? Does
Nothing, right?
no
'Cause
fog
it's all
comes out?
it would be
It'd
all
be
up
just
top.
trapped inside
Yeah, it
there.
probably might even explode or
So
something.
you're just drinking probably gross water.
No,
at
it
this point.
wouldn't be trapped. It would just like pressurize the water as you
Yeah, it
open
would
the
just, like,
spigot.
blast out.
Yeah,
So then put some green food coloring in that.
Ooh.
and a couple of Mentos.
Yep, and you'll be good to go. I don't think Mentos
No,
would,
they don't react with water,
but it'd make it minty fresh.
but Alka-Seltzer would.
Yeah, and dim the lights. Put a glow stick in there too in your water
Oh,
cooler
yeah.
with a little
That's
dye.
nice. That's nice. I
That's
like
right.
that.
We're a water cooler decoration recommendation
That's right.
podcast. Last week we talked about Jocko's pick, Shock Value. Jocko's one of our guests. Jocko, how's it
Hi.
going?
Hey. It's going really well. I'm very happy to be back.
But maybe we should introduce ourselves.
Yeah, Jocko.
I'm Jocko Farino. Hi, everyone. I'm your guest.
All right. Keith, who are you?
I'm Keith. Who are you, John?
I am John. I'm one of your hosts.
But
Just like
your
Keith.
Halloween costume's pretty cool. You're dressed up as Freddy Krueger.
Kruger.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah. Keurig. Freddie Keurig.
Freddie
You know, I
Krueger.
heard that Freddy Krueger's he got his name from the character Krug from Last House on the Left,
I learned that too.
from a book I read for this podcast.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
I'm Julian Cage.
Oh, hey,
Oh,
Jules.
hey. Oh, when'd you
Julian
get
was
here?
there too.
We're telling scary stories.
Oh, yeah, it's scary.
So what are we talking about this week?
So what's new to you, Jules? I think
Yeah.
you got You're supposed to bring a new to you thing.
Yeah,
this
PH,
week.
Well-
what's new?
I finally saw the new Ghostbusters movie.
All right.
Oh, yeah.
And
Well, that's been out a long time.
yeah, and I'm sad to report that I think Eddie Vellante, who was our guest during the Personal Obsessions podcast, and his personal obsession
And
was
new father.
Ghostbusters. And he has been very skeptical about this new Ghostbusters movie. He'd kind of written it off, just knowing who was involved. And I really wanted to like it, and I came away very disappointed. I mean,
Aw, that's
Were you
too bad.
disappointed in not liking it or disappointed in liking it?
no, I wanted to like it, but I didn't.
Oh.
So, no, I mean, it was fine. Like, it was I guess sort of entertaining. It was an okay movie. I would give it an okay. Like, I wouldn't say like don't watch it. You know, it's not terrible. It just, it's just hard not to compare it to the original. It doesn't live up to it, in my opinion. And like I said, I like everyone. I actually like everyone who was involved. I liked a lot of the other things they've done, and I just wanted to like it. But I think the main thing that I felt was missing compared to the original is that the main story, the characters, the tone wasn't sufficiently grounded. Like, they had really grounded the original in reality. Like,
Right.
no one was like hamming it up or goofing it off, and there was just a lot of a much more tongue-in-cheek tone in this one. A lot of more like winking at the camera stuff, and also a lot of a lot of these kind of scenes that you were like, oh, they just sat and were like, hey, let's improv some stuff for this scene, and then like we'll edit a fast edit of a bunch of the funny stuff, which again just doesn't, I feel like, takes away from the kind of the mystery and the action that you're trying to tell.
We didn't go into this on the Ghostbusters, but there was definitely one of the actors. I felt like he's kind of come around now, and he's a little quieter, but he was definitely hamming it up. Like William Murray, really like just took it too far. I think in the original one.
Well, I was actually going to contradict you a little bit in saying that I do believe that Honey, I Shrunk the Kids actor was a little over the top, even before he turned.
But I think. I don't know.
Rick Moranis. Sorry.
Richard Moranis.
But
Yeah.
I don't know. But he wasn't.
He was not as bad as William
I
Murray.
think he was pretty cartoonish.
He's
at
a
the
cartoonish, but he's like a cartoonish person. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, he wasn't. I don't feel like he took you out of the movie. You kind
realism.
of saw him as an annoying neighbor. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You weren't like, oh, there's Rick Moranis doing his goofy thing. You know,
Yeah.
like not. It still worked within the story, and then and it also was a smart choice because he then becomes one of the evil beasts, and so that contrast is really sharp. And there's just a lot of really smart decisions were made in the original. I mean, there are some things that date it, and I think I was looking forward to this opportunity to kind of like, I thought it was a smart move to like update it to that. Like making it an all-women's team like really does change so much, and and I was really looking forward to how are they going to do that. I was looking forward to seeing like making it an all-women's team, and that was a big change that could change. I don't know. I was just really interested in that take, and I thought it could have been interesting, but I feel like they just didn't take it seriously enough. I mean, it sounds stupid to say that they didn't take the Ghostbusters movie seriously enough, but I just feel like they didn't.
I get what you're saying.
But yeah, and even like maybe this is a spoiler, I don't know. But even like Bill Murray in that movie is he's actually pretty bad. Like
there's cameos from most of the original cast, and it's another thing that the way they handled them takes you out of the movie every time. Like all of them feel like just feel out of the blue and are very like, oh, here's the cameo. Yeah. And they're all very negative as well.
Yeah.
They're all like
really weird.
They all show up to say something nasty kind of.
It makes me wonder if your viewing of this movie suffered from kind of an expectation type of thing, in that this movie's going to be better when you see it as having seen it before. I remember when the movie Spy came out, was it called Spy? The Melissa McCarthy movie, Paul Feig.
Right.
When I first saw that, I was just like, humdrum. But upon watching it more times, it really grew on me. And so maybe this one will.
I doubt it.
Well, it might be the expectation thing too. Here's the challenge: is that Ghostbusters was a smaller movie, and humor, as defined by those people, like when they're making Stripes and those kind of movies, it didn't have to be as broad, and so they didn't have to be as big for everyone to get it, kind of thing. They didn't have to Jay Leno it up or whatever.
Right.
And so now, Paul Feig has a certain style and a certain way of doing comedy, and that comedy's pretty broad and pretty in your face, and it's built so everyone can get it.
Right.
Right.
Well,
and I think if you get over the expectation of like, oh well, this isn't going to be the pinpoint accurate, somewhat more realistic comedy of, if Caddyshack is as wacky as you get in the time frame, in the time period, then we get way more surreal in our mainstream comedy than we just don't have the same kind of realism in the mainstream comedy. And so when you go broad, you get into a different kind of movie. And I can see where, again, if your tastes aren't towards broad humor, you're gonna not enjoy.
I think the problem is that you're calling them broads. They're women.
Yeah.
I'm very offended because you were sitting here talking about how many broads are in the movie. I'm just
but they're funny.
Whiz, what are you?
It's broad comedy.
That's what I'm saying. It's like, gee whiz.
No, I'm saying that they
No,
are...
I'm teasing. Of course I know what you mean.
The thing is, I like Paul Feig movies. I like broad comedy. I just think that Ghostbusters, the original Ghostbusters, to me is not a comedy. It is a movie that has comedic elements in it.
But see, the thing is,
it's not just a comedy though. It's one of those genre mixing movies.
But it's
a science fiction adventure story. It's it has a lot,
right? But
it has suspense. It has heart.
It's lampooning some of those same like movies from that period and prior, and
But it's also paying homage to them.
But they've also done some careful editing to remove some wackier stuff. Like it's pared down. It's still like scene for scene. It's joke per joke.
Right. So, but the thing is, here it's
how they handle the encounters, how the characters quip. Like there's not a
right, but
they don't allow the tension to sit long enough to call it like it's a comedy. They punctuate each scene with a joke.
Right. And then I think another question to consider too is, and it's weird to think this, but is this Ghostbusters for us even, right? Like, is it for a much younger audience that is growing up?
I think the main thing that is just that it wasn't a very good movie in my opinion. Overall, like not even comparing it to Ghostbusters, I just don't think it was as good as other Paul Feig movies.
As like
yeah.
Spy or something.
Do you think part of that is because in other Paul Feig movies he can be so he's got the broad comedy and it's very loud and in your face, but it's also in his other comedies dirty in a way that Ghostbusters can't be, and maybe that adds a little something.
And also, there's a lot of this like sci-fi action stuff, and I think he's just super bad at that.
Sure.
Like,
Yeah.
it just and it,
Comes
I
off
think
schlocky.
maybe it just like the movie was rushed or something. Like it just feels sloppy and not in a good way. Like I feel like there's a looseness to that into those improv comedies that just don't work in this kind of movie,
Right.
in my opinion.
So
Again, it's just my opinion.
do you feel like you were justified then with the bad comments that you left on the trailer when it posted to YouTube, or was that?
Oh, that wasn't me.
Oh, okay. Well, that was a million other.
No, I
He
again,
did use the term broad comedy a lot.
Again, I didn't think it was like I was like, well, maybe it's just a bad trailer. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
I wasn't like I was kind of like I was like, let's wait and see.
Yeah,
You know,
I
I
held
was
out
very
hope
open and
to-
I wanted to like it, like I said.
Totally.
But the the
Proton pack.
no, the good part, the good spin, the good part. What's the stupid word I'm
That
looking
9/11 joke I made?
Yeah,
you
exactly,
nailed it.
exactly. No,
The bright side?
I went to the Kips
takeaways?
Bay movie theater.
Oh, I love
it's
Kips
a
Bay.
New York City movie theater, and they have. It's already my favorite theater.
Oh,
but
Nouveau Roman.
they've upgraded it, and it has like lazy boy recliners,
man.
electric recliners, which in New York City is, you know, in the burbs that's very commonplace nowadays, but in New York City it's like it was just amazing.
Yeah.
So I disliked the movie in a very comfortable position. So that was it. Ghostbusters.
All right. Would you recommend someone go see it to form their opinion, or would you say are you saying wait for video? Like, is it worth?
I would
if
say
you
wait
were-
for video.
If you were watching it on a plane
That would be fine.
movie,
Dude, I bet
That's a
but
Netflix
see,
movie.
You got to know that like your expectations for a plane movie are completely different. Where you're just almost happy to see anything.
I just
No,
watched
no.
Now You See Me,
Wow.
which was I was very surprised that they released that.
Wait, the second one?
No, the first one on a plane.
Wait, that's the one with Eisenberg where they're
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're illusionists.
yeah, but you just now watched that on?
Yeah, I don't know. It was on. It was bad.
Are you
That's
sure it
all.
wasn't the sequel?
No, I don't think so.
yeah.
No,
now
no,
you
no,
don't.
No, they made a Now You See
Yeah.
Me Part 2.
Yeah, now you don't.
Yeah.
And I think the timing works out that it would be on a plane right now. It's wild.
yeah.
But nowadays, I mean, that's on planes. There's like huge selections of things.
Especially if you're-
I guess
was that an
I've just only been
international or-
flying JetBlue, and you just
Yeah,
get
if you-
like
That's true. If flying international, you always get good stuff. When
Gotcha.
you fly
Yeah.
nationally, it's not so good. But
Yeah.
Or not at
anyways.
all.
Anyways, so Keith,
hey, buddy,
Hey.
Did you have a pick this week?
I do.
Can Mary fry some fish, Mama? I'm as hungry.
This week we're talking about horror films, about more scary,
More scarier.
more scarier. And so last week we talked about an awesome book that Jocko brought in and rekindled some love of mine for the old horror films that I had forgotten existed. And this time of year, when it's kind of frosty outside and we're thinking about getting some hot cider and stuff, I always like to think of, we're talking about scary stuff because Halloween's coming up. Last year around this time, or when did we do the other scary one? It might have been 2 years ago.
A few years back, yeah.
I think it was 2. Yeah.
What I brought in Poltergeist Part 3. This time I kind of specifically decided I didn't want to do a movie. So I thought about some video games that legitimately creeped me out at different times in my life. I don't know why I settled on this song. I guess I looked at what other people were bringing and I thought, maybe I could add more to the conversation with some music. And this one specific song I've loved for almost 20 years now sprang to mind. The song is called Psycho. This particular version was recorded by Elvis Costello. It's a live recording. It was released on an obscure B-side of an Elvis Costello record in the 80s, and that's how I first heard it, was on my friend Jace. My friend Jace had it as some obscure B-side.
On Almost Blue, or was it on another B-side single?
You know, it might have been one of these like 10-year anniversary releases or something, or a remastered release of Almost Blue that it might have shown up on. But he definitely recorded it during the time when he was recording Almost Blue, which was this collection of Elvis Costello takes on cool old country standards. But this song is called Psycho. Written around 1967-68. The first recording of it that I know of is by a guy named Eddie Nowak in 1969, and it's it's at first blush it's a standard old country death song. A lot of people might not know this, but there's a long tradition in country and folk music. I guess you could, in just folk storytelling, that has this kind of interesting, bizarre, violent streak to it.
Grim fairy tales.
Going back to even that era.
Scarier Pt2.
Any kind of folk tradition, they often have these. They often have this kind of bend that's a part of the tradition. So some country death songs you might be familiar with.
Country Death Song by Violent Femmes.
Country Death Song by Violent Femmes. What are some Delia by Johnny Cash.
Delia,
Knoxville Girl.
Yep.
Really traditional song. There are literally dozens and dozens. In the Pines by Leadbelly.
Oh, that's one of my favorites.
But they're just a long tradition of these songs where it's often a kind of a confessional of a character who's a killer. They are either kind of being braggadocious or being kind of confessional about their killing.
Which is the one? There's one about, I think it's from her perspective when he buries her in the grave.
No, that's a Nick Cave song where it's from the killer and from the girl. And that's Kylie Minogue and Nick Cave in the 90s did this song called Wild Rose, I think it's called.
The Wild Rose.
But my name was Elijah Dane. That is a beautiful song. And in fact, he put out, Nick Cave, that record is a whole record full of death songs.
Oh, cool.
And that's an amazing album, an amazing song. And then my first introduction to Kylie Minogue, actually. And most of America's first introduction.
A very odd, very apart from what you normally do.
Yeah. Getting back to Psycho, the country death song is usually kind of braggadocious, or it's either kind of got a braggerly kind of feel to it, or a kind of like, well, I did that, now I've got to face the consequences.
Right, or every once in a while there's the sad lament.
Yeah,
where it's like, what have I done? Usually, yeah.
That's actually more common, the kind of moral version of it. Like Sting did one that Sting did a song that Johnny Cash covered in some of the American recordings, and
Crazy Man Michael is one from
Johnny Cash has actually made.
He's done a ton of.
If you took all of his death songs out, you could make a whole record out of them. A lot of them he didn't even write. They're just around. But Psycho is slightly different because I find it definitely scarier and definitely a lot more tragic than most. I mean, most death songs are tragic because it's usually killing a girl, and it's usually some senseless killing of somebody just because you kind of felt like it. But Psycho is different. It was written by Leon Payne. Leon Payne is a fella. He was born in 1917, died in 1969.
Of a heart attack, yeah.
But he was born. He was blind. He wasn't born blind, but he was born with sight in one eye, and he went blind early on in his life. He became a musician when he was a teenager and just wrote multitudes of songs that have been covered by all the country greats. Anybody who's on the country pantheon has recorded often several songs of Leon Payne's. In fact, even people that you wouldn't consider country people. Elliott Smith has done one. Jeff Buckley has Leon Payne's song. But his real breakout was with Hank Williams really early on. Lost Highway, this very famous song, is a Leon Payne song.
Why don't you sing that for us?
Nah. Not
I'm a lost highway.
No, that ain't how it goes.
I'm on a lost highway.
No.
I can't find it or myself because I'm on a lost highway.
Gotta get a map. Hey.
Can't find it on a map. Lost highway.
Elvis Presley has recorded some Leon Payne songs. Willie Nelson, you name it. Emmylou, everybody's done one. So the guy is like, he's right up there with the country greats, just with his contribution to the genre.
And he was strictly a songwriter, or did he perform?
Well,
as
he performed as well, but like a lot of country, heroes, they never really found they never became known as a performer. Other people would take their stuff and make it,
And he would write
their own
for people specifically, too.
Cool.
sometimes, yeah.
Just like Prince.
This track, he had written it with Nowak in mind.
No kidding.
Yeah, that's
I
what his
didn't read
daughter
that part.
said. And his wife was also blind. Something else to take note of.
But okay, getting back to the song, what sets this one apart is this is a song that's really scary in that the character has lost control, and that's not uncommon in country death songs, except that this character is in a way actively seeking help and pleading in the song to stop him from doing these things that he knows he's doing. And in the course of the song, he ends up actually murdering the person that he's asking for help, which is his mother, which is devastating. So in the song itself, it starts off in a confessional kind of way, in that and some of the scarier stuff in the story, in the song, are the things that aren't the words but are being talked around. So what I imagine is he's in this like hot southern kitchen with his mom, trying to tell her like, this is what's going on in my head. Please help me. He says, you ought to let him lock me up. That's like the first refrain in the whole song. Mom, I've done these things. Please let him. You got to let him lock me up. And I don't actually know. I mean, coming from the '60s, I guess the movie Psycho had come out in the '60s. So I guess the term has come around.
Right.
But I always considered that kind of a newish term.
Oh, yeah, 1960 was that. And then, there was the Charles Whitman murders on the University of Texas campus in 66.
Yeah.
And then the big one was basically what they kind of said their
Did they call it Psycho then? I mean, did they use the word?
They were probably using the term psycho because Ed Gein they were using psycho for him, and he was the one that
Texas Chainsaw Massacre was based on.
And also what Norman Bates was roughly based on too. And then there was also the 66, another one, Richard Speck murders, where he killed all those nurses. That was a big sea change in terms of...
That was the sniper killings?
This is the guy that went into I forgot if it was like a woman's dorm for these nursing students and in Chicago in 1966 and killed 8 of them.
Wow.
Really brutal stuff and a lot of pretty horrible. And then they just kind of, based on that,
what would have stopped him? A good guy with a gun.
Yeah, a nurse with a gun.
Yeah.
But basically, he was the songwriter was having a conversation about all this stuff, and he wrote
with his steel guitar player.
He wrote this song in direct response to all that. So I think that's the big difference. And a lot of the themes in this song, similar era, and a lot of the themes in this song are a lot of the same themes that we saw in the films that were talked about in the book from last week, where it's. What makes it scary is that typically
there's no reason,
right? And typically these death songs were usually confessional or they had
Jilted
shame,
lover.
guilt.
Right.
It was like a crime of passion most of the time. Whereas here, this is like cold detachment. It's almost like the person who's singing is I know this theoretically is supposed to be wrong, but I have no control over myself.
Yeah.
But it's funny because you sort of picture it in your head as as him very emotional and pleading, whereas I, especially with Elvis Costello's kind of cool delivery, I read it as very he's very cold when he's saying these things to his mother.
Well,
he doesn't really feel them.
But he certainly is delivering it cold, because you imagine this character as being almost shut off from their emotions because their emotions are killing people. But he says I wish that both of us were dead. He was talking about, I had a dream last night where, I woke up with my hands around my brother's throat, wishing both of us were dead.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that's not emotionless. That's him and he even says to the mom,
he's just broken.
Yeah, and he says to his mother, please don't hand me Johnny's pup, Mama. I might squeeze him too hard. He's aware that he is a time bomb, or he is a weapon.
Right.
Except I picture him saying all these things but not meaning them.
Yeah.
Plus,
he's
I might kill him.
No, I don't know. I mean,
almost like he's
it is
threatening.
obviously it's obviously open to interpretation. Yeah,
Because I feel like his mom isn't gonna do anything, and he's just
well,
like,
no.
it's
What
more
I imagine
threatening.
is his mom is hearing this stuff and is just petrified. You know, like what do? You know, in that situation in real life, Julian is telling me. Sorry.
No, go ahead.
Julian is telling me, oh yeah, you know, I saw my ex-girlfriend last night and I killed her and I buried her and her new boyfriend under a tree. Like, as you as the listener to this story in real life, what are you going to do? You're just going to be like, yeah, really? Then what happened? You know, I don't you would just kind of like, don't provoke them. Don't do anything to set them off.
That's really interesting. I wasn't looking at this song as a
real conversation.
Yeah, as chronological either. You know, I think that end line, what is it like?
Mama, why don't
you get up? Yeah. It seems to me almost like a Norman Bates thing, right? Where he's been speaking.
Yeah, I always thought she was dead the whole time.
She was dead the whole time, and
Yeah.
I love the progression of time. I imagine a psycho killer who is coming back to the corpse of his mother over a long period of time to
keep having these conversations.
Because he says, the moment that really clicked for me in the song, and this was the first time that I'd heard it, I hadn't heard it before, is that moment that you mentioned of "Don't hand me the pup," and then right after that, or a little bit after that, he says,
I just killed
Johnny's pup. And I really like that idea of, I think that hammers home an idea of inevitability when you're struck with an affliction like this.
Well, that's something I do want to get to eventually.
Yeah.
Like that to me is the scariest part of this whole song.
Totally.
Especially when he's mentioning people like offhandedly, like Mary and the baby. It's
Right.
like they're dead. Like this is the list.
No,
of
the
people
baby's not dead. The baby's crying.
No, he's gonna
Mama's
kill
not dead yet because she's holding her cup at the beginning, and then he breaks her cup.
Well, see, but he repeats, I didn't mean to break your cup twice. He could have broke it by dropping it, and maybe she got mad at him, so he killed her. Like, there's all sorts of, like, weird possibilities. Like, the baby crying, it could still be echoing in his head, and he's already killed the baby. Like, Mary, why, what's happened to Mary? Who is she, and where did she go? Part of that is, like...
Mary is scared of him. Well, the wonderful thing about this is it can obviously be interpreted in all these ways. And the story that you build in your head is scarier than the story that I would describe because you're filling all the gaps in with what's scariest to you. And that's one of the things that's why I said that this song is most scary because of the things that aren't said. You know, like he doesn't say I'm choking my mother. He just says, "Mama, why don't you get up?" At the end, like,
but at the same time, it has enough of these very specific details that make it feel real. Like the broken cup. The broken cup, because it's such a mundane thing, and it's like so like unimportant compared to everything else he's done. It makes it that much. Yeah, it's just great songwriting.
Yeah, and he says when he's talking about the neighbor. This is why I think she's alive. He says, what's that girl next door? Oh, don't tell me she's dead. Because I just saw her yesterday in the park.
No, but
it
he
also
says,
it also
that he
implies-
just beat her to death with a wrench.
No, but he's
girl.
he says his mind slipped away. He
Yeah,
was holding a wrench,
there's this
and then his mind slipped away.
There's this implication
No.
that he
No,
goes
the
into
idea-
these fugue states.
Yeah.
But the idea is like, all right, so let's assume the mom's alive, and she says like, hey, you know that little girl across the way? Oh, don't tell me she's dead. Last time I saw her was in the park. Oh, and like I don't remember what happened after that. I just had a wrench in my hand. So it's sort of like it's noted that she's dead.
Right.
Yeah.
And the last time he saw her, he was sitting on a bench with her with a wrench.
Because
like he killed her.
Yeah, of course he killed her. But see,
Right.
this is the thing. This is the sadness behind the killer in that he's like, oh, don't tell me she's dead. I mean, I was just with her, and it was me again. You know what I mean? It was like, so to me, and this song has got a lot of disturbing stuff in it. I mean, all the way through, but it's very beautifully done, and it's in this version of it. Elvis Costello's voice is kind of ghostly and hollow. I love it's a live recording, which is not always as good a quality. It's certainly not the same kind of quality that I love, especially in an Elvis
And there's
Costello
an album
song.
cut you can dig up, supposedly.
But there's something about this particular mix that I just find to be way more effective than any of the other versions that are out there as well. I'm biased because this was the first version that I heard, and I'm biased because I'm a big nut with Elvis Costello. I love the guy. Getting back to what I find to be first of all, this is the only song that I can think of where he actually kills somebody during the singing of the song, which I think puts it in its own category of country death songs, and that's why I find it to be one of the most scary songs. But at the same time, the thing that I find to be most terrifying, and what I find to be super terrifying in real life, is this idea of, the concept of this character knowing that he is capable of these things and not being able to control it. Mm-hmm. There's something in real life, this terrifies me. A good example is in real life, Woody Guthrie's mother had this disorder where she slipped into mania by the time she was 40. She became, and you could see and he saw the transition as a youngster. He saw her try to burn them all alive in their house. But because it was a genetic disorder, he found out early on in his 20s, oh, that's going to happen to you. And I can't honestly imagine a more shuddering feeling than knowing that, guess what? You are going to become out of your head. You are going to become a person who can't control themselves and might do violent things. That to me is terrifying. And I think that this song so subtly, and maybe not even on purpose, maybe that's just me applying that, I don't know, but that's what I read into this song, and I find that to be, I truly find that to be terrifying. And I know firsthand a good friend of mine who went through a similar thing in real life, and it's a real tragedy.
Yeah, I guess what I wonder too, because your true quote psychopath is going to be the guy who, I mean, their mind might fill in some blanks, right? But there should be someone who doesn't have the ability to make these connections, and so we'll have this sort of weird detachment. And this is what I wonder is how much of this song is we're writing a country death song with some titillation in there and referencing these killings, and it's got a darkness to it and a weirdness to it, and it's kind of fun to write, maybe.
Oh, sure. I mean, I imagine there's a catharsis to the old country death songs
right.
That is why they're so prevalent.
But they're throwing in right in the first thing is can Mary fry some fish, Mama? That's a reference to Albert Fish, which was a known serial killer. That's why you get those little
right.
moments in there. But then there's also fun Jackie White.
Do you think so? I mean, is that the only reference, or because to me, if that's the only one, I think that's a coincidence.
There's probably other references in there.
There's also he put the name of one of his friends.
Well, yeah, the guy
character.
his steel guitar player is what Jackie White's name
sure.
comes from. So he was definitely
yeah, but that's not a reference to any known killer.
But there are.
I kind of feel like the fish one is probably a coincidence.
Well, I mean,
not that it matters, but I just don't think that
it's of the time. And basically, if he's writing it's the 1960s, serial killers in the air. He's writing a country pop song, weird song about killers, and kind of putting this stuff in there. I guess what I wonder is how much of it is pop psychology version of that too.
Right.
Well, he's not trying to moralize it or say
no, I don't.
But I don't. He's not trying to moralize it. And to say pop psychology would mean that they're trying to kind of give you things to look out for or whatever. I kind of feel like that this is just a story it's just.
But what I mean by that is
trying
to project what is in this killer's head, and the way they're internally narrating it is, they got to have this level of weird remorse or something. Let's play with that. That's kind of their conceit with it.
Well, I think any writer would want to try to, at whatever level they're trying to tell the story of this character. So however much
themselves in that space, yeah.
Right. I'd be interested to know how much, if at all, this went on to influence Psycho Killer, which is another
the Talking Heads song.
Yeah, the Talking Heads song Psycho Killer, which is the only other song of major popular culture that's that sort of the main character is a serial killer or psychotic killer.
I think I mean, Psycho Killer is on actually a way higher level of of notoriety than
That's
this.
true.
This song is
Yeah.
really kind of not
I guess
that
I was
well
just
known.
saying I meant that in that I'm sure that there are lots of like new metal songs where it's like I'm in my bed.
Right.
You know.
I'm gonna
New
kill
metal,
you.
man. Have you been listening to our podcast?
Just bringing it all back around.
No, well, there's in every genre there's
Right,
there's some version of
Of the
this.
killer song.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But again, to talk about like we did last week with being surprised at the timing, this also seems very early, even if it was in the zeitgeist for a country, death song, even to be dealing with these subjects in this way.
To be dealing with real life ripped from the headlines.
Right, ripped from the headlines. Yeah, serial killings.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I think any
that's
references there, if they're there, are obscure enough too that he's pulling on tradition and also taking what is out there of the time,
Right.
and melding the two. So there's like, ooh, zombies are cool.
Right.
Write a zombie country song, but using the old tropes to really get it across. Could be,
Yeah.
that could be something someone would do today. Jules, pen it. Let's get it down.
All right.
Get it on paper.
Zombie love, country song.
Zombie truck song.
She thinks my tractor ran me over.
Yeah. She thinks my brains are sexy and tasty. Keith, where can people find this song?
Well, it's kind of difficult. It does exist out there somewhere. I've seen a version of it on CD, but honestly, I can't find it except on YouTube.
Thank God for YouTube.
Yeah, and somebody out there put it on YouTube, and thank you. It's beautiful. It's still as haunting as ever, and it's just as scary. That's the only place actually I know, because I've looked at iTunes, I looked on Spotify. It's just one of those songs that.
Maybe you can buy the CD on eBay.
Well, but the problem is I don't know the exact. I don't know which exact record it came out on, because it was a re-release or it was a single B-side, which they used to do out there, you youngins.
Do you think that this is also a supposition, like if Lenny from Of Mice and Men wasn't a migrant worker, if he had a home and family, that this is what he would have become? If George hadn't taken him out back and told him about the rabbits.
Well, I mean,
Not to
I might
spoil everything.
squeeze him too hard is right out of Lenny's
Yeah, it is.
I'm gonna love him and pet him and cuddle him with love.
Come here, mama.
You think I'm psycho, don't you, mother? You know what's funny? Like
let me lock him up.
that cartoon character showed up in several Bugs Bunny things, and I never knew that it was a reference to like some kind of literature ever. Even though he said he called him Lenny all the time. Hey, Lenny. It was a total reference to that. Way to sneak.
What do I do, George?
Way to sneak some culture in there. Warner Brothers.
Just the right kind.
Yeah. Well, Jules, what did you have any takeaways from this or anything, or?
I just think it's a great song.
Yeah.
And I mean I really like again I really like Elvis Costello's take on it. There's something about his delivery that like makes it a little bit creepier.
Yeah.
I think.
Well, also, we were listening to several old versions of it, the Eddie Noyak version, and there was another guy.
Beasts of Burden.
No, the Beasts of Burden version's pretty cool too. That video was really
Beasts
neat.
of Bourbon, right?
No, Beasts of Burden.
Yeah. No, it's Bourbon.
I thought it was Burden. The
Beasts
Beasts
of
of Burden. It was a Australian band. But no, what I was saying is
Bourbon.
the instrumentation of the Elvis Costello version is so much nicer than the others. There's a which is weird because you got to imagine these other ones were by like real-time country all-stars, but Elvis Costello brings a bunch of dudes over from England and they're like out playing these dudes. There's a just an amazing organ part in it. There's the slide guitar is just beautiful. So definitely seek out the other versions, which you might be able to buy. Those versions you might be able to buy on Eddie Noyak.
But only listen to
Nyack.
them with the lights on.
Yes.
Otherwise, it'd be too scary.
Yeah. And if your mom's in the room, just go ahead and have her leave.
Don't break her cup.
Don't break your mama's cup.
But I also like it's one of those things. If you don't pay close attention to the lyrics, it's like, oh, this is like a
nice
pleasant.
little song.
Yeah.
It's like a nice little country tune. But if once you start listening, you're like, whoa, this is
Yeah,
dark.
so kids, if you need that like last little button for your mixtape to your paramour, then this is a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice B-side.
Well, do you guys remember the song Knoxville Girl, which is one of my other favorite country death songs? It starts off the whole time as being this like sweet little, I met this girl and we're going out on this date. And then like two-thirds of the way through, you're like, then I picked up a stick and I beat her down and threw her in the river. And it's just like, what? This song totally took a turn. It was crazy. But if you want to check that song out, that's on a couple. There's a BR549 version of that on the Live from Roberts record, and I believe there's a version of that the Lemonheads made.
Oh, cool.
Knoxville Girl from Car Button Cloth record,
Nice.
I believe. Yeah.
Jocko, you liked it?
I did. Yeah, I liked it a lot.
Me too. Good pick, Keith.
Good.
Nice,
I hope I didn't give you guys goosebumps.
Oh, not like R.L. Stein does, but
Okay,
close.
good.
Can Mary fry some fish? Mama, I'm as hungry as...
Such a question, there are many possible answers, such as hard work.
Feel I'm alone in this.
Hey everybody, thanks for listening to our second episode of More Scarier. Keith brought us a great pick. I was one of your hosts, John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho, and you can find me on Snapchat at NotDeadJohn. Keith, where can people find you?
You can find me on Tumblr to see some of my art on earthlingkeith.tumblr.com.
And you can find me, Julian Cage, on Twitter at Beautiful Jules or on Instagram, same thing at Beautiful Jules. How about you, Jocko?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Jocko Farino. And you can find my writing at clippings.me/Jocko Farino.
Among other published.
Totally.
published.
Or you could just go straight to the source.
That's right.
And you can find links to Jocko's contact and all of our contact information on the website newtoyoushow.com. We'll also have links to the content. Maybe we'll see if YouTube yanks it, but maybe I don't always like to put a link to the video or to the song, but maybe I'll just do that since this is a hard one to find. So yeah, we'll put the link to the song up there.
And be a link to the lyrics and also a little article that
we
has some
found.
nice backstory on the song.
Very cool find there. Good pick, Keith. Too.
Yeah,
I like
great.
listening to that song. So next week, I'm up on plate with a Stuart Gordon classic, question mark, From Beyond, a little H.P. Lovecraft movie. It may not be new, but maybe it's new to you.
It's all about the music. This pitiful life is all about the music.
With him together forever, without the limitation of time, ever again. So the second coming of the Lord is not there. They're two separate entities.